psychology that we find in our Vaishnava scriptures, Bhagavatam and others. So the way we will proceed today is to look at a problem of psychology, which is especially relevant to spiritual life, but actually is pervading everyone's life, even those who don't see themselves as being on a spiritual path. Still they too are facing the same problem in their lives. But it's when one is taking to spiritual life that this problem becomes very apparent in very clear terms. And in general, we can call this the problem of the conflicted mind. Now, in the Western psychology, this is certainly recognized as a major difficulty. I'm sure everyone here has heard the term neurosis. So it is said that neurosis arises from or is symptomatic of a mind in conflict. And within neurosis are placed such mental disorders as anxiety states and panic attacks and obsessions and hysteria, so many things. So, conflicted mind, again, that's something that if it's recognized in Western psychology, then it's a universal problem. So, I just got done saying that we're going to be looking at a problem that especially becomes apparent in spiritual life. So what do I mean? I mean that there's an ultimate conflict, an ultimate mental conflict, which for somebody, I explained to you yesterday what material mind means. So for someone who is convinced that material objects will make him happy, will make him satisfied, then he's not going to be able to see the conflicted mind in the way that I'm going to be talking about now. Because he's thinking that the objects of the senses are natural goals for him. And so then the conflict of his mind will still come up, but he won't recognize it in just the way that I'm speaking of it here. So now to explain what I mean about the conflicted mind in terms of spiritual life, I'm going to refer to a question of the 4 Kumaras, which they asked of Lord Brahma. And this question is found in Canto 11 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This question is related by Lord Krishna to Uddhava. The 11th canto has a long section in it called the Uddhava Gita, just like there's a Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna speaking to Arjuna, so in Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 11 there's Uddhava Gita. Lord Krishna speaking to Uddhava. And the subject matters of the 2 Gitas are the same, but in the Uddhava Gita it is very much expanded. Krishna is going into much more detail. So, in the course of this Uddhava Gita, Lord Krishna refers to a conversation between the 4 Kumaras and Lord Brahma. And this conversation took place a long, long time ago, actually just after the creation. So if you don't know, the 4 Kumaras are 4 great sages But interestingly enough, they appear in the form of small boys, 5 years old. It is said that these sages refuse to grow up. So they just have retained their physical appearance from age 5. And yet at the same time they are the wisest personalities in the whole universe. In fact, they are said to be representations of the Jnana Shakti of the Lord's potency of knowledge. So these 4 Kumaras, they're very fond of discussing among themselves different philosophical problems. And then they take these problems to other learned personalities, like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, and they put their questions before them, hear their answers, and consider them. So they came to Lord Brahma with this question. I'll read it. This is the translation from the Srimad Bhagavatam. That, O Lord, people's minds are naturally attracted to material sense objects. And similarly, the sense objects in the form of desire enter within the mind. Therefore, how can a person who desires liberation, who desires to cross over activities of sense gratification, destroy this mutual relationship between the sense objects and the mind? Please explain this to us. Now the central word here in this verse, Sanskrit word, Ananya, which is a contraction. Contraction means, I don't know if you do this in the Finnish language, but in the English language, you could take 2 words, cannot, and contract them into one word, can't. So in Sanskrit, the 2 words are anya, anya, which means other, other. And they are contracted as anonya. So this can be rendered into phrases like one another, each other. This is what anonya means. So this is the central focus of this verse. Anonya, one another, each other. The 2 others are the mind and the sense objects, which simply means what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, what we feel. This information which is constantly being presented to the mind in our waking hours and even in our sleep when we dream. Dreams means that on a more subtle level, the same sort of sensual information is being fed into the mind. So these are the 2 others, anya, anya, anya. And what the 4 Kumaras are explaining in their question, what they're presenting in the question, is that mind and the sense objects are united in such a way that it is a great philosophical problem to imagine their separation. And the thing that they're pointing out is that for those who take to spiritual life, now I'm focusing right on that problem I was telling you earlier, the conflicted mind as it is faced in spiritual life. This is the ultimate conflict. That spiritual life, and this is not just the life of the Hare Krishnas, but we can take almost any religion in which there is the doctrine that the goal of life is beyond this world. So, if we apply that criterion, then we can say the Christians they're faced with the same dilemma, the same problem. Or the Buddhists, or many others. And the problem is that if this world, meaning what we're perceiving with our senses here and now, is to be crossed over, as the Kumaras say here, who desire to cross over activities of sense gratification. If there is a higher dimension of experience, a transcendental dimension of experience, a spiritual dimension of experience, which is beyond this what we're perceiving now. And the goal of our life is to attain that higher dimension. And the Kumaras are asking, how is it possible then to free the mind from these perceptions that we're presently having? Going very deep into this issue, we see that actually our perceptions, the perceptions of our senses, are defined by the mind. And similarly, the mind is defined by our perceptions. I was telling you yesterday about taste. So, the mind is the seat of the emotions. And our experiences that we're having, they are always being judged by our emotions. What we see, what we feel, what we smell, what we taste. We are always categorizing them into like and dislike. This is nice, this is not nice. This is a sort of emotional judgment. And this is how we see the world. Nobody sees the world objectively, I mean in the sense of just seeing things as they actually are. We're always seeing everything through our mind. And there are so many things out there which our mind is not taking into account of, which make no difference to us, so to speak. There's so many. You can sit and you can look a little bit. You just look at all the things on your field of vision. You see so many little flashes. And they may be phenomenal just within our own optical system, the eyes and the nerves and the brain. But anyway, there are just so many things there, flashing on and off, zipping across our field of vision. But we don't take notice of them. Or little things that are actually out there, like a speck of dust floating down. So this is always there, but our mind censors them out. It's not important. So we're not actually seeing things as they are. We're seeing things as our mind likes to see. So our mind is actually defining these sense objects, giving them a definition. And then you can also then think about how another living being, non-human living being, will perceive this room, for example, a fly flying around in the air here. How will it see this room? Do you think it will see the room the same way we see it? That's highly unlikely. And mainly because the fly has a different kind of mind than we do. Like it is said that there are some living beings, according to what scientists can understand of investigating these creatures. There are some creatures which only notice things that move. Otherwise, things that are just still, not moving, don't register in their mind at all. Because it's not important. Because these living beings are always very hungry, looking for something to eat. So that which moves is probably something that it can eat. So its mind very efficiently censors out all non-essential information. Background, trees and walls and things that don't move. That's not necessary to notice. But something that's running across the field of vision, that could be food. So their perception is something like a radar screen, I suppose. Only see blips that move. So this is a very, very different way of looking at the world. And it's because of a difference of mind. So you see then how the mind is defining the sense objects, and similarly the sense objects are defining the mind. If we try to imagine someone whose mind had never been impressed by any sense object at all. In other words, here's a mind that has no conception of visual objects or audible sound or taste or smell or touch. What kind of mind would that be? See, we couldn't imagine how such a person would function in this world. Such a person would have to be institutionalized. He would be in no position to connect with the outer world at all. So as in the days that follow, as we look at the mind, we'll see, yes, the mind is very much connected with the senses and the sense perceptions. And that definitely is what a defining feature of the mind. So this is the problem that the Kumaras are presenting to Lord Brahma. Here we are, we're supposed to be on the spiritual path. How then do we overcome the perceptions of the senses? How do we free our mind from that? And so for those who are on the spiritual path, this is the basic conflict. It's famous. In all religions or spiritual paths which attempt to achieve transcendence. Like in the Christian religion, there's the phrase, the world, the flesh, and the devil. Put these all in one line. The world, the flesh, the bodily organs, and the urges associated with it, and the devil. The idea of one who is tempting us. Tempting us away from the spiritual path into sin and forgetfulness of God. So yes, this is the basic conflict for those who are on the spiritual path. Now for those who are not on the spiritual path, they won't take it that far, because they're assuming that the senses are good and the senses can make us happy. But then they will admit that they're having problems with specific sense objects. See, just like here's a young man and a young woman who have a relationship, but this relationship has run into problems. So then each other, one another, anonya, you see, there is a big problem, and they're doubting whether this relationship can go on. See? So this person who was a love object previously has now become an object of disturbance, or eventually it may even become hatred, the actual opposite. And with so many other things. People have problems with money, people have problems with their work. We're all talking about an environment created by our senses. So, those who are not on the spiritual path, they still have the same conflicted problem. Their minds versus something out there. But they hesitate because they are, as I gave you definition of materialism yesterday. So they've accepted materialism as their life doctrine. So they're very hesitant to just across the board say the whole of my experience is a problem. But when one takes to spiritual life, then one can see things that way. And this is what the four Kumaras are presenting. So, and this is indeed a very deep problem, philosophically speaking. So deep that Lord Brahma, now Lord Brahma is the demigod in charge of creation. He's the first teacher of the Vedas, so he is certainly most learned. But he could not answer this question. He could not give an answer to the question. He thought about their question for a long, long time. And indeed it is said that he was bewildered by his own work of creation. Because he's the one who creates the gross universe. This is his work. And he's attached to that. So because of his own mind's involvement in the whole universe, he also became bewildered by their question. Yes, how do I overcome this? And this after all is my work. How do I get beyond this? He also, after a long time, he couldn't answer. So then the Lord, Sri Krishna, taking compassion upon Brahma, because Brahma is representing the Vedic knowledge, which means he's representing Krishna's own teachings. So the Lord, to save Brahma embarrassment, he appeared in the form of the Hamsa avatar, in the form of a transcendental swan. And he took up this problem of the Kumaras. So his answer was threefold. Basic, I mean, it's actually quite a much longer answer, but I've selected 3 verses from the answer that we're going to focus on here. So the first thing, Manasavachasa Krishya Grihyate Anye Apindriyari Aham Eva Na Mato Panyat Iti Buddhidham Anjasa. Within this world, whatever is perceived by the mind, speech, eyes, or other senses is me alone, and nothing besides me. All of you please understand this by a straightforward analysis of the facts. So this is the first of the 3 basic points of the answer. That, as I told you yesterday, everything that we're perceiving is energy. Whose energy? God's energy, or nature, as Prabhupada would say. This is nature, material nature. So we have to ask, who is nature? And that's God. God's nature, Krishna's nature. So therefore, the Lord is saying, everything that you see is me. It is coming from me. It has no other source than me. So, if we can accept this, if we can come to appreciate this, then we can begin to see how we can cross over the obstacle that our senses are presenting to us. The obstacle is not actually out there, it's in here in the mind. And I was indicating that yesterday, that when our mind is tuned to an attitude of I am the Lord, I am the enjoyer, I am the controller, then we will have a very problematic relationship with Krishna's energy. Because Krishna's energy is not ours to control or enjoy or lord over. And as soon as we adopt that attitude towards it, then we are going to have problems with it. So, as we understand that this is Krishna's energy, then our perception of this energy will become purified. Okay, I've already explained to you how much of what we see is determined by our mind. So as the mind becomes purified of this tendency to lord it over, then one is able to see this world in a different way. As Krishna's energy, as meant for his service. So this is the first point. And then the second point, Guneshu Avisate cheto gunais chetasi cha praja jivasya deha ubhayam gunas cheto mad atmana. My dear sons, the mind has a natural proclivity to enter into the material sense objects, and similarly, the sense objects enter into the mind. But both this material mind and the sense objects are merely designations that cover the spirit soul, who is part and parcel of me. So this is the next point, that this problem of mind and sense objects, these two halves of a duality, a great duality that we are faced with in spiritual life. These are different from us. You see, we are something other than our mind and something other than the sense objects. This problem becomes very difficult for those who are identifying with the material mind. And that's, that's really very common. When people think about themselves, when they think I or me, they are most often referring to the mind. This is how they think of themselves. But here it is revealed, the mind is something other than ourselves. And of course we're talking about the material mind, when I explained that yesterday. The materially conditioned mind is also considered a material element because it is so bound up with matter. The soul, the pure soul, is different from that. So this problem of mind and its attachments to sense objects is made so much worse when we think that we are the mind. So the Hamsa Avatar is telling us, this you have to understand, you are not this mind. And you're certainly not these sense objects out here. So just understanding that fact of our true identity is immediately bringing relief from this problem. Then, the third part of Hamsa Avatar's instructions. According to my instructions, one should fix the mind on me alone. If, however, one continues to see many different values and goals in life, rather than seeing everything within me, then although apparently awake, one is actually dreaming due to incomplete knowledge, just as one may dream that he is awakened from a dream. Now this is very interesting. It's a very interesting insight into human psychology. Those who are identifying with the mind, who think I am the mind, and who are viewing the world through this mind, and seeing many different goals, many different possibilities and choices, different paths that they could take. They are, according to the Hamsa Avatar, in a state of dream. Even though they are thinking they are awake. Now this is bringing us to the doctrine of the different stages of consciousness that we experience in this mind and their relationship to the modes of material nature. This we need to understand. So we're speaking of dreams, which in Sanskrit is called svapna. So the dreaming state is a product of the motive passion, the sattva guna. And it so happens that human consciousness, or the human being, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the human being is himself said to be largely situated in the motive passion. We are very much influenced by the motive passion. And so if dream is a product of the motive passion, and a human being is mostly situated in the mode of passion. What is the logical conclusion? The logical conclusion is that what we call human mentality is largely dreamlike. You see, it means we're mostly dreaming all the time. Now, when I say we're dreaming all the time, I'm not saying that we're sitting in this room and this room is a dream. No, actually, this room is something else than what we think it is. That's not what I mean. That everything that we're experiencing is merely a hallucination. No. But we are imposing on the world around us our own, as stated here. What does he say? Hamsa Avatar, values and goals. Everything we see is run through our emotions, and we're constantly dividing up people. For instance, just for example, the people that we know in terms of friends and enemies. You see, people I like, people I don't like. So this is all our own mind. And we have quotes in here. I did research. We have quotes from Srila Prabhupada. He is explaining that this is all imagination. When we come to the view of this world as it is presented in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, which is a spiritually scientific view of the world, then what is there? What is there is there are a host of spirit souls, spiritual beings, who are now involved with material bodies which are created by the modes of nature. That is what is really there. But who is seeing that? Who actually sees soul and matter when they look at this world? That's very, very few people look at the world that way. People look at the world through their own values, through their own desires. And they certainly do not see people as a conglomeration of matter and spirit. They're thinking, I am the body, and they're thinking they are the body. And again, there's an immediate emotional sort of judgment of these bodies in terms of good looking, you see, attractive, or bad looking, repellent, like that. This duality going on constantly. And this is the world we live in. And this is a world of dreams. And people live their whole lives out pursuing these dreams, these goals, which are simply creations of the Lord. So this is what it means that the human being is in the mode of passion. That his life is largely a big dream. So what the Hamsa Avatar is saying here is that to wake out of this dream, wake up out of the dream, then we have to fix our minds on God, on Krishna, who is the reality behind everything we are seeing. He is the source. He is the one who has put together spirit souls with their material bodies. He is the one who is dwelling within the heart, giving the knowledge, the remembrance, the forgetfulness. He is the one who is allowing these different living entities to fulfill their desires in different ways. In other words, He is the Lord. He is the control. And ultimately all this is meant for Him, as an offering to Him. So to see things in that way, that is real wakefulness. That is this sattva guna. So there's, again, speaking of these states of consciousness, so there's states called jagarana, wakefulness, which is the mode of goodness. This is, again, seeing soul combined with matter, seeing that as being the living entity, the persons within our field of vision. Not only persons, but all creatures. They are soul combined with matter. And behind that combination is the Supreme Soul, Sri Krishna. This is the real wakeful state, to see things in that way. To see things through the eyes of Shastra, Vedic knowledge. Then there's the dreaming state. Of course, we all dream at night, and that is also a product of the mode of passion. But if one is so-called awake, one is imposing his own goals and values on this world, not able to see things as they actually are. That is dreaming too. That is swapna. You see, just like watching television or something like that. That's a programmed dream. That's also not real. But people spend long hours every day watching TV. So apparently they're awake. But they're not really. They're dreaming. It's an electronic dream. And they surrender their mind to it. Being carried away by it. So in this way, there's different ways we can understand how dreaming is not just with your head on the pillow, the eyes closed, and pictures turning in the mind, but we can see, we can understand how we dream while we're awake. And then there's a state called susupti, dreamless sleep, or unconsciousness. And this obviously arises from the mode of ignorance. So these are three states that we're experiencing within every 24 hours. We're awake, we dream, and we're in deep sleep. And these three states, which represent the three modes of nature, are all pervaded by the original consciousness of the soul. That is the background or the foundation. And that's called Tuya. That's the pure state of consciousness, beyond the modes of nature. Srila Prabhupada compared this to clear light or clear water. You see? When water becomes mixed with mud, then it takes on color. It becomes brown. But water itself is not brown. Water itself is clear. So similarly, I was telling you this yesterday, when the mind becomes associated with the modes of nature, then it takes on these states of consciousness, bodily wakefulness, sleeping, dream, and dreamless sleep. But there is an original, clear state of consciousness, Turiya, above the modes of nature. And I'm going to be speaking a lot about that, but not so much in today's presentation, because today we're basically looking at this human level of consciousness, this rajasic state, passionate state, which is very dreamlike. So obviously, if we can understand this, and if we can accept this, that the human mentality, what we would call ordinary human mentality, is largely a dream, then we can easily understand why there would be so many mental problems. Why psychology is such a rich field. Because if you're dreaming, you see, you're experiencing things which are not actually there. And yet, just as when we have dreams at night, we do become attached to our dreams. If they're nice dreams, or even if they're terrible dreams, we're attached in another way, that we become so fearful. We panic, nightmares, they can be measured, the heart beats fast, and one is sweating, and turning in one's sleep and moaning. This is a real physical reaction. But the experience, when we wake up, when we actually wake up from such a dream, whether it's very pleasurable or very horrible, then we realize, what do we say? Oh, it was just a dream. And the Shastra, the Vedas tell us that death is like that too. You see, we go through our whole life accepting our experiences as being real and becoming very much involved in them, whether they're pleasurable or unpleasurable, but we were very much involved with them.
Olivat ne sitten miellyttäviä.
And we're working to some goal that we have. We have some idea that of what we should achieve in this life.
Siitä mitä tässä elämässä tulisi.
And then at some point death comes.
Yllättäen kuolema tulee.
Now when death comes, we're forced to realize at that moment
tuolla hetkellä
this wasn't real.
Että nämä asiat eivät ole todellisia.
But as I was telling you yesterday, then it's a little too late to do anything about it. But it's really a shock to have to then look at the whole life, look back at the whole life as it is disappearing, and realize I just wasted all those years. I was, involved in things that have no substance. And some people have had this, what's called NDE, near-death experience. Books written about that. And they have died clinically for some minutes, perhaps on the operating table or some other situation. The heart stopped, all symptoms of life stopped, but then resumed after some minutes. And some people come back with memories of what happened in that state. And they've also said that this life, which they have been taking as real, is not real. Many say things to that effect. That in that near-death state, they were going into another realm, another dimension, which seemed much more real to them than here. They were perhaps having some meeting with angelic beings, and this is also described in the Vedic literature too. These beings that conduct the soul from this life to another realm. So some people have actually seen such beings, beings full of light, speaking to them, and been for a few moments in realms that are much more substantial than this experience that we're having. So imagine, having that experience. What does that mean for the life that we live? So Krishna is saying that we have to see this present experience that we're having right now in a different way. We have to see everything as resting within Him. Now I'd like to take a little time to explain this very clearly. Because the Srimad Bhagavatam does nicely explain how one whose eyes are open to the spiritual truth, how one should actually see this world. So from the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, verse 13, and of chapter 19, we have this verse, Guna Vyaktir Yam Devi Vyanjabo Guna Bhavam Tvami Savashirat Mashi Sarendriyasya Namarupa Bhagavati Pratyastvama Pashraya. Now what this means is that I was telling you before about the world being a combination of spirit and matter. They are souls and they reside within bodies. So this verse is saying that these souls are given by God, by Krishna, by Narayan, in this reference, Lord Narayan. He is, together with the soul, as super soul, formed Vishnu in the heart of every body. And these bodies, senses and minds, the external covering of the soul, Hare Krishna, this is given by the consort of the Lord. Goddess Lakshmi. If we're speaking of Krishna, then that is Srimati Radharani. So this combination of spirit and matter is manifesting from the Lord and His personified energy, His eternal consort. And so the Bhagavatam is giving this very nice way of seeing this world. In other words, this world is nothing other than a manifestation of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna or Lakshmi. They are energies. And there is a purpose for this manifestation. Tasya Adishvara Shaksha Maneva Purushat Paraha from Sarvam Jagya Ijayam Kriyam Palabhubhavam. That this manifestation is meant for sacrifice. That Lord Narayan, Lord Krishna, is Yagya, sacrifice personified. And Lakshmi is the original form of worship or sacrifice which is offered to the Lord. And the Lord is the enjoyer of that. So what this world is, if we turn to other scriptures like Chaitanya Charitamrita, for example, what this world actually is, it's a particular lila or pastime of the Lord and His consort. Just like we know, in Goloka Vrindavan there is Radha and Krishna, and they are enjoying Madhura Lila, the intimate Lila, transcendental loving exchange. And we know that all of us as spirit souls, that should be our destination. That is, that Lila is where we will find the ultimate satisfaction for our desires. But we're not there now, we're here. So this is another Lila. And this is called the Vyavahara Lila. There is the Nitya Lila, the eternal Lila of the Lord in the spiritual world. And here is Vyavahara Lila. Vyavahara means in relationship with the material nature. Or it has been translated as conventional. Conventional meaning, yes, what we're experiencing now. The so-called ordinary world. Of course, this ordinary world is also not, it's very extraordinary, but in terms of how we perceive it day to day, it seems to us to be ordinary. So that's the sense of the word Vyavahara. So, the Lord expands into this material creation. He comes personally to give this world its order. He and His energy enter into this world. And the purpose of this world is sacrifice, yajna. And that is why the Vedic scriptures have presented us with Varna Ashram Dharma, for example, the Vedic social system. It is a system of human society which is meant for making sacrifice to the Lord. All the different stages of that social order, the student life, the married life, the retired life, the life of renunciation, brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas. These are different stations of sacrifice to the Lord. And so by living one's so-called ordinary life, vyavahara life, in sacrifice to the Lord, then one is purifying the mind, and purifying the senses, purifying the whole being. And then one can come to know the Lord, even within this present state, embodied state. Because again, the Lord is with us, and all of this is simply His energy. But our problem is that we have been relating to this energy in a wrong way. And that is the whole sense of the Vedic knowledge and the Vedic culture, the whole Vedic prescription for human life is meant to reform our attitude
Veda-kulttuuri
towards the Lord's energy.
asenne tai ohje ihmisille.
That is what sacrifice is all
Tässä
about.
elämässä meidän täytyy
The
muuttaa
word
suhteen
sacrifice
Herran energiaan.
in the English language comes from Latin, sacram pacere, which means to make sacred.
Pacere.
So just like, when we offer naivedya, food stuff to the deity, what is happening? It's transformed from being ordinary food, which will, if you eat it, will give you karma. Because to eat anything means to eat the body of some creature, some living being, even a vegetable, is life. And if we just eat the body of a vegetable in ignorance of the Lord, although that's certainly less violent and more sattvic, better than eating meat. Still, one is responsible for that life. Such food is binding, Krishna says. So therefore he prescribes that everything must be offered to him before we eat it. This is sacrifice, and this is making that food pure. So that when one eats it, then one actually makes spiritual progress. So this is the idea of the Vedic culture. Every aspect of human activity is to be purified by sacrifice. Of course, India today is also largely under the influence of the West, but still the remnant of Vedic culture is there. And one can see that traditional Indian culture, how rich it is. It is not, I mean, India has, in terms of what we were talking about in the beginning of our presentation, India has such a strong tradition of spiritual life. But it is not dry. This overcoming the object of the senses, it is not dry. It doesn't mean blanking out all the perceptions, so that you're practically just living in a void state. This is not the idea of Vedic spirituality. Vedic spirituality is purifying the perceptions of the senses and purifying the way the mind is interacting with those perceptions. And so Vedic culture is so rich. There is Vedic music, there is Vedic dance, there is Vedic theater, there is of course Vedic education, Vedic marriage and family life, a Vedic society, an entire Vedic society, everything is there. But the aim of this, again, is to purify the mind and the mind's relationship with the world around us. It is very scientific in that way. And this then brings the human being out of this passionate dream, this dream world of the mode of passion, which is a world of inflamed emotions. When the emotions become inflamed, when the desires become inflamed, we lose control of them. And I mean, quite frankly, that is the story of modern civilization. That man is trying to control his environment, but is always getting out of his control in very, very tragic ways. So man is not the controller, God is the controller. And by this method of sacrifice, what mankind is doing is acknowledging the Lord's control over everything and living under the Lord's instructions, under the Lord's directions, living in harmony with the plan of the Lord for this world, which again is sacrifice. Now I'd like to summarize. I told you that we have to in order to rise up out of this passionate dream,
puhuessani siitä, että meidän on herättävä tästä.
the Lord is telling us to see Him
Herra
behind
kehottaa
everything.
meitä näkemään hänet.
Now in this Uddhava Gita, which I've already explained to you what this is, Krishna is giving some very nice instructions how we may do this. And so I'd like to go through them here, a few of these instructions. Because they're very nice instructions for the mind. And they're very practical. So here's one. Kuriyat sarvani karmani mad artam sunakai smaram mai arpita manas chitto mad dharmatman mano ratihi. Always remembering me, one should perform all his duties for me without becoming impetuous. The word impetuous is just another word for passion, being passionate. Being impetuous means to be very much under the influence of one's urges. To impetuously do something means to do something without thought, just seeing an opportunity and going for it, or just reacting to something without thinking. This means to be in the mode of passion. So Krishna is saying one should always remember Him, and should perform one's duties. This means the authorized duties given in the Vedic scriptures according to our station in life. We should do these duties for Krishna, for the Lord, and sacrifice without becoming impetuous, without succumbing to passion. With mind and intelligence offered to me, one should fix his mind in attraction to my devotional service. What Krishna is saying here is that this consciousness of doing everything for Him is the key to becoming attracted to Him in everything we do. In our ordinary life, those who are living out their life without any concern for God, attraction or desire is also at the back of everything they do. Everyone is more or less acting upon their desires. More or less what everyone is doing is to fulfill desire. But again, the great problem is when we're desiring material things, we're in for a big disappointment. Material things cannot satisfy us. And so people who are locked into that way are forever frustrated. So Krishna is saying here not to smother desire, but He's saying desire should flow to me. And He is telling how to do this. One should perform one's duties carefully, always remembering me, and avoid the impulses of the mode of passion. One should offer one's mind and intelligence to me. And in this way, this attraction for Krishna will manifest. Then, another nice instruction. Nareshu abhikshnam madbhavam pungso bhavayato chirat sparsadasuya chirakshkara sahankara vyantihi. For him who constantly meditates upon my presence within all persons, the bad tendencies of rivalry, envy, and abusiveness, along with false ego, are very quickly destroyed. So rivalry, to be the rival of someone, this is someone above us. We want to attain that position. We become rivals of that person. Envy means on the equal level. Persons who are on our level, we envy them, they envy us. And persons in subordinate positions, the bad tendency is to abuse them. So these are very harmful tendencies in a human being. And Krishna is saying we can get relief of these harmful tendencies by always meditating on His presence within all people, to see that the Lord is present within everyone's heart. And this again is what I mean by looking at this world in a completely different way. And then another instruction. Samhitai ka koranaya gunatmabir guno bhavin mat suvikta dhamnaha visip yamanaya utta kim nu dushanam khanayar upitaya vigatay rave kim. For one who has properly realized my personal identity as the Supreme Godhead, what credit is there if his senses, mere products of the material modes, are perfectly concentrated in meditation? And on the other hand, what blame is incurred if the senses happen to become agitated? Indeed, what does it mean to the sun if the clouds come and go? This is a very interesting verse because here Krishna is giving us his point of view of us. Now, when one is on the spiritual path, as we've already discussed at length, we're faced with this conflicted mind. There's a mind which we're trying to conduct in a pure fashion, spiritually, but then there are sense objects and our old attachments to these sense objects and memories and so many things. And they cause disturbance. We struggle. And sometimes we're overcome in this struggle. Sometimes our senses and our minds defeat us. We lose control of them. And then we feel miserable. And this is simply the passage of the modes of nature. One is in the mode of goodness, material mode of goodness. So that's nice, but it's not steady. The spiritual mode of goodness, Vasudeva Sattva, that's steady, but the material mode of goodness is not steady. So in the mode of goodness, yes, there's, it's good. One is getting, some deriving some taste from spiritual life, but still, passion can come up, attraction to the sense objects. One becomes tempted by this attraction, and one may fall down. And then what follows is the mode of ignorance, misery, depression, so on and so forth. And so in that unhappy state, thinking, oh, I'm fallen, I'm so weak, what can I do? One may start to lose hope. This is a great problem. One condemns oneself. In psychology, this is called low self-esteem. One has a very poor opinion of oneself. And one may think, what's the use? What's the use to go on? This is not working for me. One may give up. But here Krishna is saying, he's giving his own point of view. He's saying, you are spirit soul. That is what you really are. And I am there with you. So this combination of Atma, Paramatma, it's like the sun. And so Krishna says, what does it mean to the sun if the clouds come and go? I mean, clouds on earth compared to the sun, insignificant. It's here, down here where we are, when we look up at the sun. So then sometimes we can't see the sun for the clouds. But from the sun's point of view, the clouds are insignificant. So this is a very nice encouragement from Lord Krishna. That although one's senses may become agitated in the execution of devotional service, we should not surrender to this, again, low self-esteem or this hopelessness. We have to come back to the understanding of our real nature. That we are spirit soul and Krishna is there. And then the last verse I want to give you today. Yo-yo mai pare dharma kalpite nishpalaya chet Tod ayasu nirartasya payader tva suttama. O Uddhava, greatest of saints, in a dangerous situation an ordinary person cries, becomes fearful and laments, although such useless emotions do not change the situation. But activities offered to me without personal motivation, even if they are externally useless, amount to the actual process of religion. So this is very interesting. Yes, we get all emotionally worked up. And as Krishna says, we cry and we lament
Tällaisessa
and
tilanteessa
put
Krishna
on big displays and get carried away by that.
järjestimme suuren kohtauksen ja
But
nämä asiat vievät meidät
What
mielessä.
good is it, Krishna is asking? How
Krishna
does that
kysyy, mitä
change
hyötyä siitä on?
our situation in this
Voiko se
world?
muuttaa tilannetta?
The ultimate cause of our misery
Sillä
is four
kurjuuden
things.
todellinen
Jnana, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi,
neljä asiaa.
Dukkha, Dosha, and Darshana. Krishna says.
Krishna
We
sanoo,
have to see the world,
että
the
maailma on
suffering of the world in these fourfold terms.
nähtävä näissä neljässä.
Birth, death, disease, old age. So crying, lamenting,
Syntyminen,
beating one's head against the wall is not going to change these four. They're going to go on.
sairastuminen, itkeminen, murehtiminen, pään seinään lyöminen, ei
That's
ratkaise
useless.
mitään.
What Krishna is saying
Krishna sanoo,
is that we should reserve our emotions for Him.
että meidän on varoittava tunteemme
He
hänelle.
is very nicely referring to devotional service.
Hän viittaa hienosti
There are many things in devotional service which seem
antamuksellisessa palvelussa on
to
monia
be
asioita,
externally useless.
jotka vaikuttavat ulkoisesti
You see,
hyödyttäviltä.
I mean, in a practical, one who has a very practical sense, pragmatic, looking for results,
Pragmaattinen, etsii tuloksia.
they'll have a great difficulty with the devotional service
Hän voi
that
kohdata
they see the devotees doing because they don't see
kun näkee,
where's
mitä
the
Bhakti
result.
tekee, koska hän ei näe sitä tulosta.
See, what is the result of, for example, bowing down every time this curtain opens up?
Mitä hyötyä on?
Every time the
Kumartaa
curtains
joka
open, the
kerta,
devotees
kun
bow down.
aukeaa.
Well, why? What is
Se
it
verran
for?
aukeavat, niin
You know?
kumartaa. Mitä hyötyä siitä?
They don't see any results, so they
He eivät
think
näe
this
mitään
is
tulosta.
useless.
Ja he ajattelevat, että se on hyödytöntä.
But if we, yes, and in a sense, we can agree. I mean, Krishna is saying, all right, yes, it does seem to be useless.
Se näyttää hyödytöntä.
But it's in these acts, such as bowing down before the Lord, that we should invest our emotions.
Meidän tulisi niihin sijoittaa
Then
kaikki tunteet.
these become, as Krishna says here,
Silloin, kuten Krishna sanoo,
the actual process of religion. Because the actual process of religion is love of God.
on Jumalan rakastaminen.
This is the actual religion,
Se on todellinen uskonto.
love of God.
Jumalan rakastaminen.
So to bow down mechanically
Mekaanisesti.
every time the curtains
Aina
open,
kun verhot aukeaa.
that's, that may be just ritualistic. But if we
Se voi olla rituaalista.
invest our emotions in it, if we're bowing down because, oh, now the Lord has come,
Kumarrata, kun ajattelee, että oi, nyt Herra tulee.
showing my devotion to the
Haluan
Lord by
näyttää
bowing
antamukseni
down.
hänelle kumartamalla.
I want to welcome the Lord in this
Haluan
way.
toivottaa hänet
By acknowledging that He is the Master.
tunnustaa hänelle, että hän on Herra.
So this heartfelt emotion
Tämä
is the actual process of religion.
sydämessä tunnettu tunne.
So this is where our devotion should be channeled.
Miten tähän
These
suuntaan
activities of devotion to Krishna.
tunteemme on kanavoitava.
On the other side, as Krishna says, to us,
Toisaalta, kuten
let the emotions explode
muuten tunteet
in lamentation and grief over things that we cannot change anyway.
sureminen,
That is actually useless.
sellaisten asioiden puolesta, joita emme voi saavuttaa, se on hyödytöntä.
So this is the essence of bhakti, and we're going to go in the days that come.
Tulevina päivinä
We have, actually we're not having a seminar tomorrow because it's Sunday.
huomenna ei ole
It's
kurssia,
Monday, Tuesday,
mutta maanantai,
probably Wednesday.
mahdollisesti keskiviikko.
We're going to go in depth into the emotional
Tulemme tutkimaan
nature
syvällisesti
of the process of bhakti
Bhaktin
and
prosessin
how
tunteellista tasoa.
this is actually the key to
Kun
this
tänään
Krishna conscious
on
psychology.
avain Krishna.
Along with this, we're going to explain the structure of the mind.
Mielen
We've actually already started this today
olemme aloittaneet sen
by
tänään.
introducing to you this Vyavahara Lila, this Lila of creation of the Lord. We're going to, on Monday, go into this.
Maanantai
Because this, as I indicated to you yesterday, this process of creation, the creation of the universe, is the key for understanding the structure and functions of our own mind.
prosessi.
All of this, once more to repeat,
Mielemme
all of this
toimintaa
manifestation on the metacosmic platform and microcosmic platform,
ilmentymään tällä
or
metakosmisella tai
microcosmic. This is all meant for sacrifice. This is the actual purpose.
tasolla.
And this is what we're doing in Krishna
Tarkoitus on
consciousness.
uhritoimitus. Että tehdään myös Krishna.
Everything, every activity in
Joka
devotional
ikinen
service
toiminta tässä antamuksessa palvelussa
is a sacrifice to the Lord.
uhritoimitus Herralle.
And it becomes perfected, the sacrifice,
Täydellistyy tämä
when
uhritoimitus.
all of our emotions are invested into it, and we can channel our emotions into these acts of devotion to the Lord. That is actually the perfectional state of Krishna consciousness. All right. So, I'm going to stop here. It's 8 o'clock. Would there be any questions on what we've covered today? Yes?
In some of your texts you mentioned that the variety of material world is created from more passion. So, can you a little bit elaborate the concept? Is it that in all levels, if we try to enjoy whatever variety here, there is always this danger of becoming more influenced by more passion? Of course, at some level it may be needed also, or unavoidable.
Well, the creation is a reflection of the spiritual world, and the spiritual world is unlimitedly variegated. That is the nature of reality. This Sat, Chit, Ananda, eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. The Chit potency, Sambit Shakti, means unlimited variety. So it is not that variety is simply a phenomenon of the material world. That suggestion is leading to Mayavadi philosophy. The way you formulated your question, it sounds like you're indicating that variety we have to, reduce or somehow limit it. This is the impersonalist process. They don't know what to do about variety because they do not have a full understanding of the nature of spirit. Their understanding of spirit is Sat, eternality, that's all. Eternal being, which is without form, without activity, just existence. Just a state of being without beginning, without end. That's all we can understand to be spirituality. But in our philosophy, we understand that spirit means akila. Akila rasa. Rasa means taste, and akila means complete or unlimited. The material world is a place of kila rasa or jada rasa. Kila means incomplete, taste, incomplete, happiness or variety. There's something there, but it doesn't satisfy. There's just enough there to attract us to get involved in this material world, but there's not enough there to satisfy us. So, yes, material variety is produced from the mode of passion. The mode of passion is the mode of creation. Lord Brahma is Rajaguna avatar, the manager of the mode of passion. He uses this mode of passion, which is a transformation of this Chit Shakti, this energy of spiritual knowledge, because that is what he gets from the Lord. After he does his meditation on the sound tapa, he is empowered by knowledge, the Vedic knowledge, which is the Chit Shakti. And then he does the work of creation with a transformation of that knowledge, which is the mode of passion. Knowledge is transformed into the mode of passion, the mode of material variety. But originally, this Chit Shakti is knowledge of the varieties of the spiritual world. So there's no question of trying to suppress variety and suppress taste and
Se ei ole
suppress
kysymykseen
desire. This is
monimuotoisuuden, maun
hopeless.
ja toiveen alistaminen.
Rather, we should come from the
Toivoton.
incomplete state
Sen sijaan,
of taste, variety, and desire to the complete state.
että olemme tälle
And how do we do that?
maun,
Well, Prabhupada used to
monimuotoisuuden
give a very,
epätäydellisellä
very
tasolla.
nice sort of formula for that.
Henkisellä
He said because these varieties of this material world are all incomplete. Therefore, they're like so many zeros. You see, they're incomplete, so they add up to nothing. So it's like a long line of zeros.
Pitkä rivi nollia.
You see, all the features of this world, like a long line of zeros, add up to nothing in the end. But if you put a one in front of them, the one in Krishna, then you have a great sum. So that's what we have to do. Put Krishna in front of everything. Everything is Krishna's energy. Why should we want to suppress Krishna's energy? That's actually another subject I could have gone into here. And I don't want to drag it out. But this is, I was talking about the conflict between the mind and the external sense perceptions. And we find again and again this theme discussed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And along with this problem, there is this proposed solution of voidism, like Devahuti. She asks a question of Lord Kapila Deva, also using this word anonya. Purusham prakatir brahman na vimunchati karachit anonya pashret tavatcha